Ved, Pranam Mantra. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. We are covering Purusha Suktam, and previous talk we saw mantra 2 where describes how God alone has become everything. Purusha evedam sarvam yad bhutam yacha bhavyam. Whatever has been, whatever will be, is God alone. Now, this is not something unique to, say, Hindu religion, but the power that it gives in its direct statement, and of course, the various statements that we have in different scriptures. If we can just remember that whatever has been, whatever is, whatever will be, that means your own parents, your friends, your enemies, your frenemies, love turned to hatred, all that you eat, all that you speak, all that you think, everything is God. There's nothing that can ever be outside God. Can you imagine how life will change? It is beyond our imagination. Life will change permanently. It will change forever if we can think like that. Now, you will say that, well, I am ready to treat my enemy as God. But is he going to do the same with me? No, he will not. Because the goal here is for me. That means for you to become blessed. You are not a teacher. No one has given you the responsibility to correct others. If God wants that, He will give you that knowledge, He will give you that power right now. Right now. My need, your need is to become spiritually blessed. See, when you go back home from wherever you are, in all probability, someone is waiting for you at home. Maybe your mom, maybe your sister, your wife, somebody. And if there is no one waiting for you, you yourself will be taking care of, say, your food. They will be waiting for you with food. Now, you don't go challenging them. Then, when the whole village or the whole town or the whole city, I mean, where you're staying, they are hungry, unless they are fed, unless everybody is fed, I cannot take food. No, that is how silly. That's just a second. That's silly. Talking like this is you go and have your own food. And you know that somebody is waiting at home. Something like that. Scriptures, the Vedas, like mom, they're waiting for you, trying to feed you. And you just keep shouting, no, unless they change. Nobody is going to change. And once you truly realize it, once you see it for yourself, you will know there never was an enemy. And when they come harming you, even then you will see that as God. There's that famous example of Hari Baba when a black cobra came and he said, oh, God has sent a messenger. See, that kind of feeling. You change so much from within. There are other things. I mean, those who want to argue, they can go on arguing for years and for centuries and for lives. Nothing is going to change. Thing is, do you really want blessedness in life? Do you want to become spiritual? It's just one thing. Realize whatever has been, whatever is, whatever will be, it's all God. It's not God's will, just God Himself. So, what is this universe that I see? Why is it that I see people as friends, people as enemies, people as harmful, people as beneficial, people as honest, people as corrupt? The third mantra, when I had read it first, I was so impressed with it. Etavanasya mahima. Etavanasya mahima. This universe, this universe is God's glory. And it's through glory that we know that it's all, how great God must be. Sri Ramakrishna used to give the example of Jamindar, that is Babu, he used to call them Babu, and his garden. In earlier times, people who were rich, they used to have a huge garden and they used to call them garden house. Like if you visit Kashipur, at our center at Kasipur, you'll see how large it is. And it used to be a garden house, Kasipur. Then Kakurgachi also same. It used to be garden house. So once you see one of these garden houses, then you realize how majestic its owner must be. Now, if this universe is the glory of someone, the extension, Mahima is actually kind of, you can say, glory, extension. It's used variously. Etavanasya Mahima, Ato Jayasya Purusa. And God is greater than this. God is greater than all this. God is greater than His glory. Padosya Vishwabhutani, three Padasya Amritam Divi. A quarter of Him is created beings. Three quarters are immortal in heaven. Those of you who have been listening to our talks, you might remember there was a pranam mantra for Lord Vishnu where we said, Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. That three quarter, that is beyond it. That's not visible to ordinary eyes. Sada Pashyanti Surayaha. The wise, they can see it always, all the time. Now, here there are two very important things to know. First, very often, very often I meet people who while explaining their idea about God, they say, well, we believe that God is some kind of energy. God is energy. And I don't know. I think someone was telling me, I don't remember what exactly that gentleman told me. It was about there is some preacher, or there has been some preacher who has been preaching all these things like God is energy and energy is everything, etc. Now, if you say that God is energy, then your outlook towards God, your outlook towards the universe becomes slightly more confused than the philosophy of Sankhya. According to Sankhya, Prakriti, which is the sum total of, you can say, energy and qualities and mind, but there also there is consciousness, which is separate from Prakriti. At best, we can say there is a simplistic explanation of things. Now, as far as physics is concerned, if you look at the present day physics where they're talking about Big Bang, etc., they're talking about the whole universe being sum total of some kind of energy. And we have this problem, we the common folks, that whenever something becomes popular, some Babaji becomes popular, some philosophy becomes popular, some theory becomes popular. From becoming popular, instantly it becomes a fad. And we all start talking about it as the ultimate reality. When Einstein gave his famous theory of relativity, People started talking about relativity everywhere. Even in morality, they started talking about relativity. In ethics, in philosophy, everywhere it started becoming relative, 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 relative. Because you see, we are such poor thinkers. Our intellect is so badly limited, simply because a person has got a degree, say in science or medicine or engineering. That doesn't mean that that person's intellect is really open. Because for intellect to open, one has to study other things, one has to interact with the masters. So, saying that God is some total of energy creates many problems than it solves. Because then the question comes, where from we have this consciousness? The eternal question that is asked to all these materialists. They have actually no answer, although they try to explain, but actually they don't have any answer. So, second, if God is energy, then God becomes sum total of the universe, whatever the universe. Now, this mantra very clearly negates it. Says, no, don't think that God is sum total of all this universe. Not only this universe, anything that you consider God's glory, Mahima. And more importantly, God is greater than this. You know, might remember one very important, a very interesting statement that some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. When you have certain things coming through dynasty, like when we had this old royalty system, someone would be born, he might be a stupid person, but simply because he is born in a royal family, he becomes the crown prince. It's pretty, I mean, you can do nothing about it. And that's why there have been many instances of revolt against such kings, because they are not great. Greatness was thrust upon them. However, you will see, say, let's take the case of Julius Caesar. Now, Julius Caesar is a very interesting case because his contributions are maybe great, but probably Shakespeare made him much greater by writing his famous play, Julius Caesar. Now, I had read somewhere, I won't be able to give you the reference and I won't even be able to vouch for its correctness, that whenever Julius Caesar returned from his famous exploits, defeating this kingdom and defeating that empire, and there would be victory rally where Julius Caesar would be standing on his chariot and people would be shouting Ave Caesar. And there used to be a slave standing just behind him and whispering all the time in his ears, "You are just an ordinary mortal." And indeed, it was proven correct when he was killed in the Senate. And he famously said, "Et tu, Brutus." Now, the glory of Julius Caesar, glory of Julius Caesar is much more than what Julius Caesar was. Very often, I know because of this media and advertisements and all these things, you find that things appear to be more important, having more glory than they actually are. In case of God, it's the whole universe is His glory. Universe, universe at three stages that we discussed in the beginning: the gross world, the subtle world, and the causal world. As you meditate, you go deeper, and then you realize this entire universe, the physical universe that we see, is composed of physical energy, physical energy changing into matter, matter changing into energy, etc., etc. And as your mind becomes deeper, deeper, you realize that both matter and energy have come from a common source, psychic force. And when you go further beyond, you realize that it's all divine. And ultimately, you realize nothing, there is nothing. God alone exists, and you are one with God. So, these glories, that means gross world, the subtle world, and the causal world. That means anything that you can think of, anything that your mind can think of, even the forms of God that you can think of, these are all glory of God. Irrespective of whom you worship. Let's say you worship Lord Shiva. For you, Lord Shiva is the Easter. Then all the other forms that you can imagine, Sri Rama, Sri Krishna, Sri Ramakrishna, whatever, these are all glories of Lord Shiva. And that's why in our Puranas you will see that some Puranas extol Lord Shiva and some others Sri Krishna like that, or Vishnu like that. Why? That sometimes they will say that Sri Ramchandra is the east of Shiva. And Shiva is the guru of Sri Ram and things like that. Just to push this idea in our head. God alone exists. And whatever is there in this universe, including God with form, is His glory. And this glory is just, the entire glory is just one fourth of Him. Why one fourth? It's just a number, just a fraction. It has no value, absolutely no value, because pada means quarters. Four quarters they used to say that the whole is made up of four quarters and one quarter, just to say that a small part of it. But really, it has no significance as such. Now, those who might come up with some explanation of three-fourth and one-fourth, well, we have fertile brains, we can always come up with different kinds of explanations, but actually, there is nothing in it. The main thing is that God is God is not the sum total of this universe. And second very important thing that's being said here, Padosya Vishwa Bhutani Tri Padasya Amritam Divi. A quarter of him is all created beings. Three quarters are immortal in heaven. And the earlier mantra had said that Purusha Vedam Sarvam. When you combine these two mantras, when you bring two and three together, you then realize that God is both immanent and God is transcendent. Immanent, He is in the universe, He is also transcendent. Now, this problem of immanence and transcendence has been a very serious problem with theologians because they feel that if God is transcendent, in case of transcendent, they often mean to say that He is beyond the universe and we can somehow reach Him through our prayers. And some say, no, God is here, God is within us, and God is in the universe. But the Indian idea of God, Indian view of God, how our sages saw God, how Purusha Sukta is telling, is that look, God alone has become everything. And yet, God does not get exhausted in creating this universe. It's just a small part of it. Gita, in Gita it says, Ekankshena sthito jagat. There the fraction becomes smaller. So, Tri Padasya Amritam Bhuvi. And from this pada also means strides. Strides. And because it says God's three strides, they belong to the immortality. From there was developed a wonderful story of Lord Vishnu taking three strides to cover the entire universe. And the famous story of King Bali. And it's reiterated in the next mantra. Tripad urdhvam udeta purusa padosya iha bhavat punaha tato vishwang vyakramat sashan anashane abhi. Purusuktam mantra number 4. I mean, those of you who are interested can have this book, Veda Vihangam, and here we have beautiful collection of mantras and hymns. It says, by three-fourths, Purusha rises above, as narrated in the previous mantra, and one-fourth of him becomes gain. That means the universe, the universe is created again, again, and again. There is dissolution. There is some kind of, you can say, non-existence of the universe, and it is created once again. Tatang Vishwam Vyakramat Sashan Ana Shane Abhi. He pervades on all sides in all that eats or eats not. The idea of eats or eats not, the idea is both matter, dead matter, inert matter, and living beings. God pervades everything. And this idea of three quarters. Now, the important word here is iha abhavat punaha. A quarter of it becomes gain. This idea of cyclic creation, this is very important in Indian tradition. Those of you who had some brush with Abrahamic religions would know that according to them, God created once. Creation is one time affair by God because creation is going on continually. However, that creation by God, as far as this universe is concerned, at least, it's a one time affair. We don't believe it that way. What we believe in, the simplest example would be think of, say, North Pole or South Pole or wherever, particularly South Pole, maybe. There's a huge ocean, and because of cold, a part of it becomes ice. And then that ice melts, and then it freezes again. God is pure consciousness. God is beyond mind, God is beyond matter. For some mysterious reasons which can never be understood or explained, as those of you who have listened to our Nasadiya Sukta, it says, even the gods like Indra, Mitra, Varun, etc., they were not there. So, how can anybody say how the creation took place or what was there before creation? What we know, what little we know, comes from the words of great sages. These great sages, in the depths of their meditation, they link this universe, the physical universe, with pure consciousness, and the wisdom that they left for us, says, known as scriptures, our Vedas, and other scriptures. And there they say that God does not exhaust himself in creation. He is not the mere universe, he is much more than that. And this universe is a cyclic thing, just like if you imagine the freezing of ocean. The whole of ocean does not freeze, just a part of it. And it melts, it freezes again. That's how creation takes place. And anything that happened earlier is happening now and will continue to happen again. And that's why snakes will continue to be the snakes. Now, supposing after a few cycles, perchance you were to remember your memory, you were able to retain your memory, and you remember how this world was, how this India was, or where whatever country in which you are. And supposing you are born after billions and billions and billions of years. Of course, in between there will be no years because once the creation merges into God, there is no sense of time left. Well, just for our understanding's sake, if we take it, and then you will be seeing human beings, and you will be seeing tigers, and you will be seeing mouse, rats, and you will be seeing snakes. And you will be surprised to see that Snakes continue to be venomous, tigers continue to be carnivorous, and human beings continue to be mixture of all the animals. Total mixture of all this. Nothing will change, nothing changes. But will you be finding the same people again and again? No, no, no. Because those who attained mukti, they will not be there. So world will change. World will definitely change. It's not just the repeat of everything that was there in the past. No. The general principles continue the same. And those who have not attained mukti, they will be born again. But in different form, maybe in different species, or those details we don't know. And these things cannot be explained. These things can never be explained under no way. So, this, if you can think of periodic solidification of water, you will understand what exactly the sages meant by this. Abhavat punaha. Then we have the famous mantra number 5, which is considered to be pretty complicated, but very essential to understanding how the formless became God with form and how creation came out of the formless. This mantra says, Tasmat Virat Ajayata Virajo Adipurusah Sa Jato Atyarichat Paschat Bhumim Atho Purah. Mantra apparently is simple, but the ideas contained in it are extremely profound. The simple English translation is from Him, that is from God, uh, whom we discussed in previous 4 mantras, Purusha. From him, a Virat was born. Just remember the terms because we will be explaining them. And from Virat, another Purusha was born. That means God was born. He is now known as Adhi Purush. Adhi Purush. Just remember the term. He who was born extended beyond and created the earth and beings. We clearly have two Purusha here. Very clearly, we have two Purusha here. First one is Purusha that we have been discussing, Sahasra Shirsa, Purusha, etc. To stay away from confusion, this Purusha is often known as Adi Purusha. Adi Purusha, Narayana, the formless one. And for whatever reason, no one knows why. No one knows why. He feels that, may I be many. Because to know yourself, to know your worth, you have to have your Mahima, a glory. Those of you might have read a famous work by Al-Biruni, India. Now, when this our East India Company, they wanted some of these famous books translated, and from there some publishers took up the ideas, and suddenly there was a newfound interest in India. The gentleman, I'm forgetting his name, who was requested to translate Al-Biruni's Al-Hind book into English, he was not sure if he could translate it. So what he did was, just to check whether or not he can do it, he first translated it into German because that was his first language. And in earlier times, it was common, very common for the British gentleman, particularly the British gentleman, to know at least 2 languages very well. Now, in this case, it was 3 languages. And Those who consider themselves gentlemen, they generally knew at least two, maybe English and German or English or French, like that. And scholars, of course, they would be knowing many more languages. Just to test his mahima, his power, his glory, the gentleman first translated into German. And after that, he translated it into English. Maybe that's why some of these saints, they say that when God wants to see his own glory, when God wants to see his own reflection, he creates the universe. When you want to see yourself, you get a mirror and then you look into it. And once you look into it, you're charmed. But then you cannot keep standing before the mirror all the time. You'll become Narcissus, the gentleman from Greek mythology, who went mad just looking at his own image. So, for whatever reason, this Purusha, who is in his own majesty, he suddenly decides to have his glory. And to have his glory, he needs to have a universe. And to have universe, he needs to create it. How does he create it? He just says, let there be light, and there was light, as the Bible says. But even if you say, let there be light, and there was light, there has to have a process. What is that process? This is beautifully explained here, that Tasmat Virat. Now, this is something interesting. God's desire, God willed, desire is not the right word, because as Mandukya Karika, those of you might have listened to our talks on Mandukya Karika, and I'll request you people, if you have time, do please listen to our talks on Mandukya Karika. Mandukya Karika beautifully says, Apta Kamasya Kaspriha, one who is established in his contentment, God. How can he have spriha? Desire is not the right word. Will is much better word. But why should he will? No one knows. And that's why Mandukya Karika concludes. This universe is non different from God. There is no other way. Anyway, that's a separate philosophy. Right here, we are not discussing that. So it says, the moment God willed, there was creation of finest of matter. Now, when there is creation of finest of matter, the sum total of that matter, energy, or whatever you call, is known as Virat. But in later Vedanta philosophy, we find that there are three different beings. There is sum total of consciousness, Atman, Karan, Sharir, which we mentioned in the beginning. Then there is sum total of Sukshma, the mental thing. And then there is sum total of the physical thing. The sum total of physical thing is known as Virat. The sum total of the Sukshma is known as Hiranyagarbha. And the sum total of the causal is known as Ishvara. So we have these three. Of course, I mean, when you reach to that level of complexity and subtlety, you will have different terms, because unless you have many terms, you cannot explain that. That reminds me of a wonderful joke that when this in physics, scientists started finding more and more fundamental particles, because the complexity of physics had increased, subtlety had increased. So there was a time when there was more than 60, 65 particles, and remembering them had become so difficult that one of the famous physicists, he got Nobel Prize in physics, he had famously said, if I could remember all the names of these particles, if I could remember all this, I would have been a botanist. No, botanists are very good remembering names. But as the complexity increases, as the subtlety increases, you will have to come up with new terms and meanings of those new terms. And Immanuel Kant, the great German philosopher, he was very good at coming up with these new terms. Now that matter is created, matter in its finest form, matter is in such fine form that God, the infinite, God, the pure consciousness, now appears as sum total of the souls, Jivatma. And this matter is so wonderful, so fine, that this mind, this matter itself now appears as cosmic mind. And slightest of grossness, and you see this physical universe. Such is this wonderful state of Prakriti. Now, Prakriti is not mentioned in this. I am just explaining in the common day language that we have Purush and Prakriti, consciousness and sum total of matter. What this mantra says, and says beautifully and most rationally, that God willed, and that will came in the form of a Virat. What is Virat? Virat can be seen as finest form of matter, it can be seen as mind, it can be seen as time, it can be seen as anything, because mind, time, energy, these three stay together. If one collapses, other two also collapse. So it makes no difference how you explain it. You can you can imagine it like a very thin screen. Supposing there is somebody on this side of the screen, he will now be seeing God through the screen. The sum total of the screen, the sum total of that screen, when seen pure as screen, will appear as mind, cosmic mind, known as Mahat. And when you see that consciousness through the screen, that infinite will now appear as infinite number of souls. That's what runs this universe. And the form of that screen becoming gross becomes this universe. And what is all that? Ultimately, it's will of God, nothing more than that. So, what is Virat? Actually, it's will of God. However, in later Vedanta tradition, we have three distinctive things: Virat, Hiranyagarbha, and Ishvara. Just to keep in mind, ultimately, it's just will of God. And to understand this, think of yourself on this side of the screen. That means that side is consciousness, and there is this screen, and you are seeing God through that screen. Depending on what you see yourself as more important than everything else. You will be seeing Virat, you will be seeing matter. You look only at the screen, you will be seeing Hiranyagarbha and go beyond. You'll be seeing some total of consciousness. And let the screen drop. If you can somehow pierce that screen, those of you who have read my book Kratu, in that novel, Kratu, that's the problem. Kratu wants to break through that screen. He's not able to break through simply because he has a simple desire of helping his friend. Slightest of desire, that's a story through which an idea is being given. Now, if you have simplest of desire, simplest of desire, you cannot break through that screen. Like Sri Ramakrishna, he had Savikalpa Samadhi, he had Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and for the welfare of the humanity, he continued to be in this body. And but his true nature was Atman. His mind very often rushed towards the infinite, rushed towards Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and he always did something whenever he had to. He felt that his mind is moving away into the inner depths. He would immediately keep a simple desire, something like, I'll drink water, I'll talk, or something like that. And because of that desire, his mind won't go into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Now, just to think that a person could not only go to the Samadhi, highest level of Samadhi, he could also stop his own merging. It's unthinkable. We don't know of any other such case. I mean, you can have scriptures and you can make stories and you can go on talking thousand things about it. But when you think of what Sri Ramakrishna was capable of, no wonder Swami Vivekananda called him Avatar, Avarista, the person who could control his Nirvikalpa Samadhi. My God, unthinkable. We can't sit quietly for an hour. We can't concentrate for an hour. And here was a person who could, at his mere will, enter Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And whenever he wanted, he could go into the deepest of Samadhi, and yet, just before going, he would keep some desire so that he can return to the normal plane. What power! What power! We have never seen such spiritual power in the history of the humanity. The idea is there is that screen known as Virat. It will be perceived variously. So you will have infinite number of souls. And that's why creation never exhausts. Now people keep on asking, hey, population is increasing. Where from so many souls are coming? Till there is that Virat, till there is that screen, there will be souls. These souls will never go away. And whenever people ask me these questions, I have to give some stupid answer to these stupid questions. I say this all these tigers and lions and scorpions and snakes, they are dying and becoming human. And you can see that in their nature. Now, this, as we said, the formless Purusha, he has created Virata. Now, he can be seen as sum total of different conscious beings known as Ishvara. The term used here is Adi Purush. Now, this term is no more used, Adi Purush, but Adi Purush is a very common term in the Vedas. So, we have in this case, you can see God creating something and coming out of it. So, and Virat acting as the intermediary. If you can reach up to the level of Virat, that means if you can reach up to that level where you realize that your identity is with the cosmic mind, if you want, you can look at both. You can see it, you can look at God very clearly, and you can also look at the universe simultaneously. One step that side and you merge, one step this side and you are into this world. And you are at that level and you can see the both. It's nearly impossible as we gather from the words of the masters. So it says, this is what is being explained here. Tasmat Virat Ajayata. Virajo Adipurusaha. The creator God is born. So think of Narayana. Narayana is a very common term used. Adi Vishnu sometimes they use. There are different expressions because this idea of formless God is so difficult to comprehend. So they give different names and call it Adi Vishnu. He creates Virat, and from that comes out Vishnu, one who is known to be sleeping on this Kshira Sagar, on this ocean of milk or whatever it might be. It's known as this Karana, the causal waters. The expression is Karana Salil, causal waters. Sajato Atyarichyata Pashad Bhumi Mato Puraha. He was born. That is Lord Vishnu. Or your Easter, whomsoever you can think of. He extended beyond. That means whatever you can conceive of. He was beyond that. As I say, common expression, larger than life. He was larger than universe. Because he is the sum total of the three universes. Soul Sukshma Karan is the sum total of that. We are in the external aspect of that God. That's why we see this universe. Once we go into the inner aspect of that God, we will be seeing gods with small g, Indra, Mitra, Varun, etc. And once we go into the inner path, the most inmost path, we'll be seeing God with form. God is God. So people who claim to have seen God, etc., you can understand how naive they are. That's the only expression we have. People who have visions, people who see God. They're just, I mean, God may appear before you, no doubt, because He's all powerful. But you can understand the subtlety of the entire discussion. Those who do sadhana, those who go really into the depths, they first cross this Sthul Jagat, then Sukshma Jagat, and get established in Karan Jagat. And it's impossible to say whether or not you can pierce the veil of Karan Jagat to be one with pure consciousness. Till you pierce that veil, you're, you'll be born again, again, and again. And it will continue. Not only in this cycle, but in the future cycles too. Now you say that, no, I don't have any issues with it. I'm loving it. I'm loving the pain. I'm loving the joy. I'm loving everything, the pleasures. I'm loving the company. I love my friends. I love my parents. Perfectly. It's perfect for you. And that's why Hindu religion never goes and preaches anybody. No. We don't convert people by the power of word or by the power of soul, because we know Hindu religion is essentially a spiritual religion which can be understood and appreciated only by those who have some kind of spiritual illumination. Unless you are spiritually illumined, if you are spiritually challenged, Hindu religion is not meant for you. Unless you have some kind of intellectual development, unless you have some kind of spiritual illumination and achievement and some kind of development in your spiritual attitude, you cannot appreciate, understand Hindu religion. Your question will be, what do you mean to say? Is every Hindu, is every Hindu spiritually illumined? No, they are not. I agree. However, they have this much of illumination to understand that their religion is a great religion and they need not convert anywhere. Because wherever they go, it will be like giving up an ocean, giving up one's existence from the ocean and moving over to a pond. Nothing more than that. It's a simple thing. If you have even this much of understanding, well, you are in a way spiritually illumined. I'll say something which may not sound politically correct, but to me, I have always wondered, because these modern day Dalits, and they were earlier called Shudras, and I have a large number of friends. I mean friends. By friends, I mean friends, genuinely, who belong to the lowest strata of the society, of the Hindu society. And they love talking to me. I also talk to them. And I always wonder that, look, when literally millions of the lower caste people converted to Islam, how come these people didn't convert? I mean, then when some politician tried to convert these people into Buddhism, etc., they didn't convert. They continue to be in this form. And the names that they have and the names that they use for their kids, they're so divine. The only thing you can say, salute their commitment to Hindu religion. Somewhere their ancestors, and maybe came later, they understood the greatness of Hindu religion. We simply say that till you reach that state of spiritual evolution, you cannot understand all this. But that does not mean that you will shut things down. Now in India, we have largest number of universities in the world. How many of them are Nobel Prize winners? We don't have. So should we shut down all these universities simply because we haven't produced Einstein? What about America itself? How many Einsteins it has produced? None. You cannot have these great sages coming up every day. That doesn't mean that you will shut down spiritual universities. Hindu religion is not only a university, it's an entire spiritual education system. You cannot shut it down. And you shouldn't, because if you shut down, you will be killing the soul of Hindu religion, and consequently, you will be killing the soul of India. So, what we are discussing here is pretty profound. Pretty profound. What is Virat? It extends beyond everything and he creates. So creation doesn't come directly from Purusha. Creation doesn't come from the formless. Creation comes in stages. How long did it take? We have no idea how long did it take. It took. We just know that this has to be the process. God, God's will, God now appearing as one with form. And now he creates. So that is mantra number 5. I am sure you like the explanation of mantra number 5. We will be coming, revisiting mantra number 5. So it's Virat who creates these universes and all the beings. And how does he create? Through yajna. Creation is an act of yajna. This we will take up in the next talk. Thank you so much.